Welcome back to Five Friday Feedback, viewer mailbag. Today, well, we got a doozy. All right, we got a doozy. All right, howdy, Fi guys. I'm reaching out, appreciate that, in what's probably the lowest point I've been in a long time. Hoping for a lifeline here. Well, maybe we can help. If you had looked at my life just 3 years ago, it would have seemed like we were sitting pretty well off financially. I was making about $250,000 a year, and with a $2,500 mortgage and $450 car payment, we were comfortable. Yeah, that sounds pretty comfortable. Nothing wrong
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
Sure, I had a little bit of credit card debt, but it was nothing that worried me. Just around 3,000. Okay, so I mean, I don't know what 250 is broken down on the month, but that sounds like something that could be covered rather easy.
Yeah, I would. That if someone told me that, I'd be like, "We'll just pay it off. Just pay it off before any debt's accrued, and do whatever you do." But yeah, that would not concern me.
My family and I were doing just fine, but then the worst case scenario hit. I got laid off, and I thought I'd just be a temporary setback. Maybe a few months of tightening our belts while I lined up another role at a similar level. After all, with my expertise, I assumed I'd bounce right back, but that bounce never happened. Instead, I was out of work for a full year, 12 months, all while trying to keep our lives steady, telling myself that things would turn around any day now. But in reality, our reality had other plans, right? Bills started to pile up, and just like a credit card. Oh, okay, so I just want to pause real quick. Right? This is the importance of an emergency fund right here. This is literally the reason, right? I prefer, 3 to 6 months. Chris, you prefer a little bit bigger?
Yeah, I have a year, but I'm also an entrepreneur. Like I have a little bit different of a situation than the average person.
So I just wanted to pause that real quick and just, make a little PSA about emergency funds. So bills started to pile up, and just a little credit card debt snowballed into an overwhelming $45,000. Fueled by our hopes, that's a lot. That is a lot. That is a lot. Fueled by our hopes and a lot of robbing Peter to pay Paul, it felt like being stuck in quicksand. Every time we thought we could see a way out, another expense, another sacrifice pulled us deeper in. Oof. Finally, I did land a job, but
Good.
it was for $100K. And $100K is pretty good, right? That's pretty good, depending on where you live. But that's less than half of what I was making before. That's true. The relief was temporary. With our new reality, we were still sinking by about $1,000 a month. Okay. And our savings was, well, running dry. It was evaporating fast. Over the last year, we've cut back on everything, even non-essentials, especially non-essentials. We canceled subscriptions, gym memberships, and anything that truly wasn't necessary. We're scraping by.
So they're already making progress. They're already doing the work, which is good.
100%. Yeah. We're scraping by, yet we're still falling a little bit short. Our financial load is quite heavy. Aside from the house, the car, we've been strapped with $1,400 a month minimum payments on those credit cards. Credit cards? Okay, so it's more than one card. So no. Unless that was just a typo. We've sworn off using them entirely. That's the credit cards.
So no, it's definitely not a typo.
No, definitely not. But the weight of those payments has become a ball and chain. Yes, I would agree. Utilities, phone bill, HOA fees, and even groceries for our family of 4 add another $2,500 to our monthly expense. And it's taking every last bit of our savings to keep us afloat. Gotcha. We're down to just a few $1,000s in our emergency fund. Okay, so they did have an emergency fund. That's good.
So I'm curious as to how they got into such big debt. I guess they weren't using the emergency fund for the debt when they were paying stuff. They were just using it as like, we'll pay it back.
Mm-hmm.
What typically happens in this situation is people start living off hope. They're not dealing with the reality of what's happening. They're dealing with the feelings of what things are going to be like. And unfortunately, that's when you get choked out. So
yeah, absolutely. And I wonder how many months they had the emergency fund funded for. Was it a couple months, 3 months? Was it, if you're down to your last 1,000 and you're, over 12 months in, Must have been pretty well funded. And now I'm faced with a choice that keeps me up at night. Should I let those credit card payments go unpaid? I feel like I need some breathing room just to get through the next few months. Maybe save something for an emergency. Okay. Do you want to talk about that one real quick, or do you want to just wait till the end?
Restate it again, just so for the audience.
So he said, I feel like I need some breathing room to get through the next few months. Should I let the credit card payments go unpaid? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, in general, just stopping your credit card payment isn't going to be the answer. Based off thus far, that's probably not the right answer. But let's see if there's something else that we're unaware of that might change or sway our decision.
I know this could mean facing collectors and watching our credit score tank. But at this point, though, what other choice do we have? The thought of keeping our heads above water seems almost worth it, and it comes at any cost. Selling our home crossed my mind. Okay. We'd probably clear $80,000 if we did, but after looking around, even a one-bedroom apartment within our area costs as much as our current mortgage. And he said, yeah, it's a family of 4.
I don't think he ever said how big his family is. He just said he had a family with kids. So I'd say 4 or 5.
It feels like the last resort that might just swap one financial problem for another. Yeah, without any real financial gains. I would probably agree with that. My wife is working part-time while the kids are at school, but due to caring for the kids, she can't work more than she already is. Fair enough. We have 2 cars, one old clunker I use for my commute, and another newer one with payments that my wife uses to take the kids to school and run errands. Alrighty, fair enough. It doesn't feel like there's much more we can cut, sell, or anything else, right? Yet we're still coming up a little bit short. So here I am asking for some honest advice. If we stop paying our credit cards, are we looking at consequences beyond the collectors? And will that hit our credit? Are there any options that maybe we're not seeing, or would setting aside those cards for later even be feasible? Or if we do continue making payments, where can we turn to relief? From lost my income, debt went high, now we're just scraping by. Alrighty. That's a doozy. Boy. That's a doozy.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. First off, to our listener, like I'm sorry this happened to you. But it does sound like you've realized that like you're the one that put yourself inside that situation, right? Like, and a lot of it, it's so pernicious, right? And that feeling like, oh, it's okay. It's gonna just one more day. I'll get a job in another day. We just keep spending the way we're spending. It's all gonna be fine. When life circumstances change, you need to change with it. And unfortunately, when we move forward with some suggestions that I have for you based off what you said, I want you to remember that in financial planning, in all of life, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So what are you willing to trade one for the other? Because you're going to have to suffer regardless. You just get to choose what way do you want to suffer. And that has nothing to do just with finance. That is a life thing. How do you choose to suffer?
100%. 100%. And like he said, he thought about selling the house, but he'd be trading one thing for another, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Totally agree. I don't believe stopping your payments, right? And just altogether, it almost feels like giving up. It really is. I know you're trying to feed the immediate fear to get a little bit of hope, but that hope is gonna disappear so fast. And yeah, you got to pick a strategy that's going to work for the long term and really get you to the goal that you want to get to. And stopping your payments altogether is not that goal. It's not that. It's not the plan.
Yeah. So I would definitely agree with what you said there, Dominic. So like just stopping your payments, unless there's something that I'm not seeing, is likely not going to be the answer. But again, if you don't find the right answer through us, that doesn't mean that the right answer isn't out there. So I'm going to give you some other options that you can do. And then we're going to talk about what would happen if you stop paying your credit cards. Just that way I can tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to try to guide you as best as I can. But ultimately, listener, you're the one who makes the decision. I guide, you decide. So I'm going to give you all the information, or at least as much as I possibly can within the timeline of our podcast. And no, nothing really specific because I don't really know the situation. And we'll see. But just stopping the payments is most likely not going to be the answer. You could always look at doing like a credit card balance transfer to another credit card. And if you do that, there will be a transfer fee, typically 2 to 3%. But there are a lot of credit cards that have a 0% introductory fee or a very low introductory fee. And that would allow you to pay less towards principal, or towards allow you to pay more towards principal, because the interest rate would be substantially less than your current credit cards. Because I'm going to guess your current credit cards probably have interest rates in the 15 to 25%. If you get an intro card, and remember, most intro cards only have the introductory offer for 6, 12, maybe 18 months. So you need to make sure if you transfer that you have the ability to pay that off. And also make sure that you consider that there often is a transfer fee of 2 to 3%. So consider that. But if that 2 to 3% and a 0% interest is more likely going to be substantially less than the 15 to 25% guarantee that you currently have.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great. A great option. It truly is a great option.
Yeah. The only thing is that I don't know what his credit score is taken. I'm not sure if his credit score has already been dinged enough that he might no longer qualify for that card. So maybe if he doesn't qualify for another card, he could also considering doing a transfer of the debt into a longer term loan with a set interest rate. Because those longer term loans, especially if you put up collateral, like maybe the house, which I don't know if that's right or wrong, but you could always lower the interest rate, and that those longer term loans will often be lower than what a credit card's going to pay. So you might be able to lower those monthly payments, which may go a long way in creating that $1,500, $1,000 gap that you said that you have every month between your income and how much you're spending.
100%. Yeah. Another great option, but unfortunately you don't have all the information.
Yeah. So since I don't have all the information, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tell you what was going to happen if you decide to stop paying on the credit cards. That at least that way you have a thought process of, this is the path I'm going to go down. Is this the kind of suffering I want to choose? Or do I want to choose the suffering that I'm currently going through? So there will be consequences beyond just collections. If you were to stop paying your credit cards today, you could expect aggressive collection efforts, including phone calls and letters, pretty much every single day. So would that cause you stress? Would that make you lose sleep at night? Because if you do that, that's coming. There also is the ability for potential legal action from creditors, which could result in court judgments against you. I don't know what state you're in, but depending on the state, those creditors could put a lien against your home. States like California, you're safe. Other states, you're not. So I don't know where you are, but that could certainly do something. You asked, will it damage your credit score? 1,000%. Your credit score will take significant damage. If it already has taken significant damage, making it more difficult to secure loans or favorable interest rates in the future, especially if you have to move into that apartment or whatever because you decide to sell that house. Apartments now are looking at credit. So the other issue, depending on the state, is you could have the risk of your wages being garnished, your bank accounts being levied, if the collectors win the judgment against you. Which, I mean, that's awful, and that could be your potential. And then, like I said, depending on the state, you could face judgments of liens on your house. So are you willing to potentially take all of those for the ability to have a little bit of, boot off of the neck, but now you're kind of trading for a boot on the stomach or, something like that. So I'm going to give you a few other options to consider that I'm just kind of spitballing here.
Okay.
Maybe we could do something like credit counseling. So maybe if you're lucky, there might be like a nonprofit credit counseling service that may be able to provide some personalized like debt management plans, or even some negotiation support with your creditors to help out with maybe lowering some of the things. Know that with majority of those, we've talked about this before, there is potential for your credit score to take a dip, but I'm assuming it's probably already happened.
Yeah. That could be a strategy. It's tough. Maybe another thing, maybe outside of the financial realm, is like maybe if your parents are involved, right? Maybe they can watch the kids so that your wife doesn't have to take them to daycare, take them, drive back and forth. Maybe she can start working more hours. Every little thing helps, right? Maybe you can ask for a promotion at work. Maybe you can ask for a little pay raise. Maybe you can ask, just because you have a job, right? And it's more than half of what you had before. Keep putting in applications elsewhere to really try and get back, right? Because every dollar counts, right? Every dollar counts.
Yeah. And let's say that you go to the credit counselor or whatever, and that doesn't work out. There is always debt settlement programs you can do. So like if you are to default, you may be able to negotiate to settle the debt for less than you owe, but that's going to damage your credit score further. So know that already. And then settlements typically require a lump sum payment, which might take time to accumulate for you because you already said that you're at the end of your emergency fund. So if that option doesn't sound good, there's also the debt management plans, and those plans consolidate all of your debts into one lump sum low interest rate and structure repayments so that you have a scheduled payment paying those off with often a credit counselor service. So that's another option. And remember, this is just the option if you decide to stop making the payments. So let's go ahead and talk about if we decided to continue the payments. Mm-hmm. We already know what's going to happen. You're going to be negative every single month. So you could possibly do what Dominic said, continue to look for jobs. Maybe your wife could try to look for a job herself and drop the kids off at your friends or your parents. Like, this is not the time to be prideful and not tell people what's going on. Like, I would just like be like, this is what's happening. We need help. Because if you don't tell them now, I would much rather tell them when I'm still in my house than show up at their door and announce being like, you know, we didn't tell you a year ago and now here we are. So maybe swallow your pride if you do decide to continue to do the payments and explore some hardship programs. So again, we're going to contact the credit card company and inquire about hardship programs, which may offer to lower your payments or interest rates temporarily. I think we just had a viewer mailbag a little while ago of someone who reached out to their credit card company and was able to negotiate their debt down from like $15,000, something like that, to like $5,000 or $6,000.
Yeah.
And just by asking.
Yeah. That's impressive. It's very impressive.
Yeah. And remember, like if you ask, hey, we lower the debt, we lower the interest rate, it's not like they're gonna, like the worst thing they can say is no. There's no way universe in the world where they're like, how dare you ask us? And since you did ask us, we're doubling it by 2. Like that's just not the way it works. So the next thing we need to do is we need to reevaluate our budget and find, I know you said you've already cut areas, but like, are there any additional areas we can cut? No matter how small, just to continue to lower the amount that we're spending. Because it's a very simple equation. How much money we make minus how much money we spend, we can throw at that debt. And then after we pay off the debt, we can use that as a driver to FI. So we need to look anywhere we can to decrease our incomes, in addition to doing anything we can to increase our income. So I know you're already working a full-time job. Can you work a part-time job too? Can you do any freelance opportunities? Can you sell unused items? Can you generate extra cash by mowing your neighbor's lawns? I don't know, cleaning cars. Although you may feel these things are below you, you're in debt to somebody else and you will never feel safe until that's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or even tutoring. I mean, clearly, if you have a job of that status, right, $250,000, $250,000, right, at one point, you must have some sort of value, maybe a higher education of some sort. Maybe you can tutor those in college. Maybe you can do something like that on your subject, right?
Yeah.
Another option.
That's a good one. One other thing I would recommend is if you are going to do that, try to maintain as best you can some semblance of an emergency fund. A lot of people, when they're paying back credit card debt, will be like, well, we can't even have an emergency fund because all the money's going toward the debt. You still need to have an emergency fund because there could be another emergency that's bigger than the credit card. So be ready for that. So I don't know what you want to do. I just laid them both out, but I want to give you some future considerations. After you get through this, you will have to rebuild your credit. And that could take decades to fix. And that's okay. We stop one step at a time. How do you eat a giant steak? One bite at a time. And that's what you're going to have to do. After you stabilize too, you might want to look into long-term financial planning. This is not an immediate need at all. Like right now, you have a hair on fire situation. We're not talking about, oh, what about your retirement? Stuff like that. Like if anyone's talking about that, like just walk away because you're not in that situation. But when you are there, it would be really good for you to have a plan, have a financial foundation, have a financial health check so that you know where you are, but more importantly, where you want to go and what steps you need to take to get there. So I do have some final thoughts for you that I haven't talked about yet, but I'm not saying you should do this, but I would at least explore the option by consulting with a bankruptcy attorney and just sit there, tell them about the situation. If the situation continues to worsen, at least we know that like, hey, this is already an option. all options are on the table, including bankruptcy as a last resort. But remember, the bankruptcy is a last resort. So if you're still being able to make payments, if you're still doing stuff, I wouldn't go that route. But it's always nice to at least talk to somebody. So at least you know that that is an option for you, because that could help to alleviate some of the stress, to know that, hey, at least that out is there. It's an out with a lot of strings attached. It's not a get out of jail free card like people like to think it is. But if it's able to help you emotionally, psychologically, to be like, at least I know that that option is there, then that's something I want you to take. And my final piece of advice for you, you need to prioritize communication with your wife. So keep those lines of communication open with her. Be truthful with your kids. Be truthful with your creditors. Explain the situation. Explain what's going on. Explain what you're willing to do to work to see that, so that they can see that you're trying to do everything you can to address your debts responsibly. And then communicate with your wife with what's going on too, and have your wife communicate with you. And I wouldn't tell your kids, hey, we're in a bad situation, we're about to lose the house. But you can definitely tell them, like, hey, mommy and daddy need to cut back right now. So we're all going to have to sacrifice so that we can live a better life in the future. I know it's the hardest thing in the world to tell your kids that, hey, we screwed up and now you can't do all the things that you want. But I would much rather choose to make that hard decision right now to set them up for an easier life in the future than go on pretending like everything's okay and eventually end up on the street, ends up having to move back in with my parents. I don't know what the situation could be, but it could get far, far worse than this. There's no situation so bad that you can't make it worse.
So true. So very, very true. Yeah. Control the controllables and let's not make it worse. But any final thoughts on that one, Chris?
No, man. Just know that this is going to take time. And you're not alone in this. There are many people going through this. And if there's one thing that I wish we could normalize more here on the Fi Guys, and we're trying our best, is that it's okay to talk about money with people. And by having these open and honest conversations, getting advice, getting feedback, just hearing a different set of opinion and seeing that you're not alone and that there are other people on this path who are there to guide you or just walk alongside you, it can really help to normalize these things so that you're not living in shame. Because that shame, that fear, that trepidation that I'm the only person in the world that's ever screwed up like this, that's also weighing on you. It's going to make it a lot harder. So know that you're not alone. I've been there. Dominic, I don't think you've been there, but Dominic has been there. We've all had our situations where we've put ourselves into a bad situation, but this is the way that we learn and we grow. So start thinking right now, in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, I'm going to be able to look back on this moment, this suffering, and say that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because it set me up for where I am then.
Bingo. That's exactly it. Well, with that being said, best of luck. We hope to hear back from you again with a positive end to your story.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.